Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's Matt Coleman, your host from Magnify World. Today from Chicago, we have a very special guest, Vivian Chazen. How are you? From the Hive.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So I know this is usually on the other foot. You're usually a host for the Hive and so around social VR. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about how you actually got into all of this, Vivian?
Well, it was a little bit of an accident. I work with technology for a nonprofit, so I work with older adults, and so I got into VR that way, and then I used it as a platform to do presentations, and then Allspace, which is where I started, as a social VR platform. They had a contest of who wants to be a VR talk show host, and so I did it because the prize was an avatar, like a custom one. But that avatar came with a show. So I just did the show, and it actually was really fun, and it was a fun experience because no one did it the way we did it before. So it was very new, and we had to kind of figure out the process of how to make a show in VR for a VR audience when it's live, when it's pre-recorded. So a lot of different logistics went into it, and that part was really fun in a challenging way.
So how do you describe the Hive to people anyway? Can you give us a bit of a description of what are the kinds of things that you're doing?
Yes, it's hard to explain if you've never done VR before. Just VR in general is difficult to explain because anyone who's done virtual reality can tell you, like, the experience of it is so real, but more real than you might expect when you imagine it. So it's basically like saying that you put on the headset from anywhere in the world, and then you meet in the same platform, just like if we decided to chat on Facebook, then we both agree that we'll be on Facebook to chat. Or in this case, we're on Zoom, so we agree to be on Zoom. In VR, we'll agree to be on Allspace. That's where we're doing the show. And then at that time, you go in and you click on the event, and it takes you to another environment. And it's the talk show space. And then there's a stage, I get on stage, I do a little monologue, and we have, like a theme song and that kind of thing. And then we invite the guests out and do an interview. You can put up slides or like video as examples as well. So it's like going to, I guess, a live recording of an event, of a talk show, but in VR. So you only need a headset to do it.
So there's been a massive virtual online environments that you can go and visit outside of VR, of course, as well, from fortnights, special events and all that that's going on in the market. I mean, what are the limitations on the VR? How many people can you get into these rooms? And, can you create multiple rooms so you can create, hundreds of people and get them to attend?
Yes. So, and that's part of why we also stuck with Allspace for some time, because they create multiple instances of the room you're in. So there's some platforms that are limited, they can only have 4 or 10 people in a room before it wears down, and then we can't connect without it bogging down the system, basically, because it's a web page. So imagine that. Audio is an issue because, audio, it doesn't sync for everybody, and audio is the hardest thing, I think, in VR, really, to get right. But in Allspace, what they did is they mirror the room. So you're in the space, and then they make the exact same instance, and then people can go into that instance and then another instance. So there could be a lot of people in there. I think the highest I've had was maybe 1,200 or so at a time. And that was in multiple rooms. And then you can have, depending on how you built the world, 20 to 50 people in a room or so.
Yeah, and you can basically create your own environments, right?
Yes.
You've got a team of technicians and developers you work with creating these virtual environments?
Oh, yes. And we've done shows in other places like VRChat. We did that for some time. Actually, we did a good chunk of shows in there because there was a time when Allspace was closing down before they were bought out by Microsoft. So we had moved over to VRChat. We've done some shows in the former Facebook spaces, Sansar, Anyland, a lot of different applications, and you can build different rooms in different ones. And we do have a developer currently, and we've had really great developers in the past who've helped us. If you know Shane from SideQuest, he built some of my stages, and he's a really good friend and so talented, and that's why he has SideQuest right now. But you can ask him for something, and instead of him like having to explain to you, like he could like whip it up and be ready, in no time. So the talents with the developing community there, it's just far surpasses what I even know how to do.
Well, you're the host of the show, so you don't need to do everything, right? So
I tell people that all the time. So let's see. It's so far so good. But yes, even we even have producers who, they're the ones that contact the guests and get them ready. They're the ones that make sure I know how to pronounce the names and, everything like that to make sure that the show runs smoothly. Because in the beginning, when I was doing majority of it, it's exhausting. And then you get on stage and you have to put on a show, but it's very tiring to do that. And to do that weekly, consistently was a lot of work. So having a producer take care of those things was great for a number of reasons. One, so that I could have some sanity, and two, because it was a really fun position to be in, to be a producer, to learn how to produce a show, and just like, being one of the first teams to achieve something like that, it's pretty cool.
And are the developers using gaming engine technology like Unity or the Unreal Engine? Can you give us some
Unity. Yeah. So Unity is mostly what I will say we build on. There are some applications that you use their SDK. So Anyland is a social VR app, and their platform is contained completely in their platform. So there's no porting anything in. There's no, creating it and then putting it in. You don't have to use Maya or Blender or anything like that. You build it within the app itself. So in that case, you'd have to go in and build it. When I did the episode at Anyland, the Anyland people built it because they're amazingly talented. The stuff that they come up with is, again, surpasses what I can do.
So I did my first interview a couple of weeks ago. There's a company in Seattle called Pluto VR.
I know Pluto. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're releasing a project pretty soon, and their technology where you can engage online basically in the VR worlds. I did my first interview though on the moon. So they created.
Who hasn't?
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Right. The problem is he kept floating away. That was the problem.
Oh, that's funny that you can say things like that, and it just bewilders people, because I've once gone into work physically and they're like, "Oh, what did you do last night?" And I was like, "We were playing cards in a room in the middle of space." So, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "What?" And it's confusing, but that's exactly what happened if I were to be literal. So
yeah, look, it's what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite game? And we're talking about esports in a minute and things like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there are a lot of games that I like. Personally, I really enjoyed Tilt Brush, which is more of an art application. It's the first experience I did, and I still love it. I think it's so versatile and fun and creative, the tools that they've added to it. So you can do so much with it. So that's like personally what I like. I also like this game called Shooty Skies. It's like Space Pirate Trainer, which is a game I also like, but it's a single player game. For competition, I play a game called Onward, and it's a milsim that's 5v5. It's a team game. You play with a team, and your team can be, you know, all over the world. We've been fortunate. A lot of us have met each other in person too, but it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and the seasons are, you know, 10 months out of the year. So that, and a lot of teams put in 20 to 30 hours a week to work with their team. So it's definitely a team sport.
And what's the landscape of the VR, social VR? Can you tell us more about that? And, you know, how big is the gaming community? And I assume it's fast growing now with everyone being at home. Have you seen an explosive growth?
Yes. So with the product from Oculus, with their Quest, which is the 6 DoF freestanding, no wires involved headset, that afforded a lot of people to enter the VR space. So people who are, you know, maybe casual gamers or interested in it, but don't want to buy a computer that's $2,000 and then a headset that's $1,000. The barrier to entry was just really high, as we all knew. But when the Oculus came out, the quality of it is actually really good. It's just so convenient. And that added a whole new group of people to come in. So as far as social VR goes, I think like there's apps like Engage, which they do talk shows and programs and meetings on their platform. Their platform is really cool, you know, and they're growing. They've been really busy, as they told me during this time. Allspace, they went through another like makeover of their avatars, and they just hosted Burning Man, which is a really big thing in a community, and it brought in all of the people who would have gone to Burning Man, the event inside of Allspace. So that's another new community that is entering the social VR space as well.
And what about the gaming side of it? What about in regards to competition, prize money, incentive? Mm-hmm. What can you tell us around that?
So with VR esports, it's definitely still small in the same regard that compared to traditional flat gaming or console gaming, VR is still a niche market. And when you go down further, because we can all just say we have VR, but then there are people who focus on, you know, social VR, and there's people who focus on gaming, and gaming of course is going to be the highest. And then the competitive gaming, I really love the competitive component because it takes like the physical aspect of a real sport and then the gaming experience where we can be in separate places and merges it together, because we are playing a video game, and it'll be familiar to people who've heard of, you know, like Fortnite or CSGO or Call of Duty. So it will have those same elements to it, but we are actually moving in real life at the same time. So after a game, like, you're sweating, you know, your heart rate is going up because you're in it. And maybe it's stressful too when you're playing pancake gaming or flat gaming. We call it pancakes gaming. So maybe then too, but we know that, like, I have knee pads, you know, and it's just like a lot of strenuous activity at the same time. So in that regard, it makes it really fun because you see how different people have to how to play the game. For instance, I'm short. I'm 5'1" and 3/4. Okay, but I have people that I play with who are over 6 feet. So they tower over me because they tower over me in real life. You know, whereas in a game you might be at the same height of others. In this regard, we are, you know, like our actual heights, and that causes like a different advantage for, for different reasons. So yeah, I think that it's just like much more fascinating to watch because you're watching what's happening on screen and what they're doing in real life. And it takes a lot of different skill sets. So I think that that's something very unique to esports right now. And I really am hoping it grows. As far as leagues, there are collegiate leagues. CVRE is one. Then there are other leagues. There was Virtual Athletics League, which was an arcade league, and then VR Master League, which is a more community grassroots league. So there are several leagues, and then there are some games who just do their own tournament type thing within their game. And the prizes really come down to the sponsors. Like it may come from the developers, the studio. It may come as prizes from like the products that we use. For example, ProTube, they create attachments for your controllers. So if you're like a shooter, you're playing a shooter, it will allow you to hold your controllers like a real rifle with their stock. So they will contribute to the prize pool as well. So maybe it may be cash or in high cash value. It's not really like anywhere near, I'm sure everyone's heard of Fortnite. Yeah, right. Yeah, it could be, I think that it warrants that type of attention because it gives that type of entertainment, if not more. And it's quite difficult to achieve. So it takes a lot of training as well. So I think that it can compete if it were to elevate and be more widespread. But right now it's still a lot of grassroots movement. Right now there is a tournament happening. It's the VR Fitness Summit. And it's a bunch of different games, and they're having people play independently and record it, and then you submit it. And that's something that we did over last weekend. We casted a tournament, and it was a single player game. So we did a split screen, and we talked about what they were doing in their individual games.
So let's just talk quickly about PlayStation VR. And what's the marketing push and the games, the up and coming games that they're releasing? Can you give us any insights into any other of the newer games from any other gaming manufacturers as well?
Yeah, and the cool thing about PlayStation VR is that it is a built-in crowd. It's people who've already invested in the PlayStation brand, and then they want to add this other new component to it. But having games port over to PlayStation was, in the beginning, I think, quite a process. So there's some games who still haven't crossed over, but a lot of popular games like The Walking Dead, I was just talking about Saints and Sinners, that's also on PlayStation. Beat Saber went on to PlayStation, Pistol Whip. So there's a lot of integration with PlayStation, which has that built-in audience. And so it is easier to get them to adopt it because it's a part of the ecosystem they already are a part of. But it's not something that is across the board. More often when it's like strictly VR, they're typically on a Oculus or Index using Steam.
Excellent. And tell us more about the VRespawn company. This is a similar company that you're running with some other partners, but it's a group of creators and developers. What's your vision for that company, and how have you been helping people in the market?
Sure. So I have the Hive, and it looks like bunny ears, but that's my signature actually. The Hive is focused on productions and social VR and talking with people that's outside of gaming, but we help with engagement and getting the community involved in different campaigns. And we partnered with VRespawn, who's run by Keir Simmons, And it mostly came about in order to highlight VR esports. But when we merged, we kind of formed it into more of a marketing company. So we do a number of things across the board. The people that are a part of our network are people that, work with Live, which is a mixed reality. We have streamers who are independently knowledgeable streamers who consult on their own time for different projects. We have developers who develop, for the Hive, the stage. We have one of our guys. He is a really good player. Like you could drop him in any game and he will just be so good at it. So he does a lot of testing. So people will send us game keys and he will play it and kind of weed out what needs to be fixed. And then we can also consult and say, if your game is ready to be played at a esport level. So that, and just hyping up games and campaigns. But we're a group of people that just really like VR, and we all have a little bit of a different specialty, and we're trying to make it more of something that doesn't need to compete with anything else, because VR is still a small community, so it just helps everyone when we all work together. And we know that we don't want to be a league. That's a lot of stuff to organize. So then we partner with other leagues, and then we take care of the things that they don't do. Maybe they don't do the marketing side of it or certain technical aspects of production. And so in a partnership way, we take care of part of it and then they do the other part.
And do you think that esports will move into the Olympics? And outside of that, when we call it esports, there's the big players like Electronic Arts that have got tens of millions of people, if not hundreds of millions of people playing their FIFA game, and Madden and all these other games. Do you think we'll ever see that in VR?
If I have anything to do with it, yes, I would love to see that. I mean, what really needs to happen is for larger companies to sponsor this. I would love it if, like Valve or someone like larger, like specifically focused in on esports, because it can do a lot of different things, such as show off a game. And the game could be an independent studio. It could be, a AAA game. So it shows off a game, which is great for the creators. It shows off players, which is the community. And then it allows for people to do things like shoutcasting. Then it allows people to do marketing for it. There's so much of a great ecosystem that goes into esports. And it's really just a matter of getting people to see it. And you kind of have to watch it to understand how cool it is, because instead of having this big giant stadium of 10 people playing on a computer and a mouse, which people do. I mean, it sells out stadiums more so than, finals for the NBA. So it's huge. But imagine if you sell out a stadium for gaming and people come and you're watching it on the screen, but you're also seeing the players sweat it out, and they're shouting and they're kind of like losing where they are because they're so immersed inside the game. I think that's very exciting to watch, because that when they are like screaming and shouting, their hands are really going up because they really physically, threw the disc into the goal or what have you. And I think that is much more exciting to watch. So really will come down to people who want to invest on that to show off anything like hardware or gaming in general.
Fantastic, Vivian. Hey, look, thanks very much for your insights today. And you've got a great role that you actually, made yourself at the Hive. It's so well done. You're really putting your head in a new world. And that's really why we wanted to chat to you. So thanks very much for your time. Can you give the viewers a chance to find you on LinkedIn or the web? Or in your VR world, where would they go?
Yeah, you can go to the Hive VR, VRespawn. We're on Twitter. We're on all the major social medias. You can find me too, Vivian Chazen. I think so far I'm the only one. So props to that. So yeah, you can look me up on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I'm available to be reached out to, and yeah, so I talk with all kinds of people in different industries too who are interested in it. So I welcome comments from everyone.
Hey, Vivian, thanks once again for catching up today. And
yes, thank you.
Goodbye from LA to Chicago. We'll speak to you soon.
All right, bye.